Welcome to Season 2 of ADAC Answers, an education podcast for all. Produced by the Podcast Business News Network, hosted by Jill Nicolini. ADAC's mission is to empower K-12 school leaders and teachers to meet the individual learning needs of all students through customized, professional development and coaching services. Led and staffed by passionate, committed professionals, ADAC prides itself on delivering precise solutions to its clients' unique education challenges. ADAC stands for Attain, Differentiate, Advance, and Collaborate. 4 words we believe epitomize our work. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined here by some of the team members from the ADAC. Excited to have everyone back today for our next episode. We'll be navigating the special education process with our experts here. First and foremost, let me have everyone introduce themselves. Please, we'll start with Sandra. Tell us a little bit about you and, of course, what even the ADAC is.
Thank you, Jill. Great to be with you again today and be with my colleagues here, Kate and Beth. I serve as Senior Vice President of Leader and Teacher Development at ADAC. I've been with ADAC since its inception about 4 years ago. And we're working in schools across the country, helping with special education, professional development, instructional coaching, as well as now we have an advocacy division where we're doing a lot of work around advocacy with federal funding. And we'll be talking a little bit about that with you today.
Fantastic. All right, other ladies, let's start off. Who would like to go next and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Go ahead, Kate.
So I'm Kate McConnell. I am Vice President for Student Advocacy at the ADAC. I started early on with ADAC, but not nearly as early as the inception. I started about 3 years ago as an adjunct consultant and then was very thrilled to join full-time a couple of years ago. In my capacity, I go into schools and help them increase their ability to include students with disabilities. And on the foundation side, on the federal fund side, I help families navigate the child find process, which I believe we're going to be talking more about today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And next up, go ahead.
Thank you, Jill. I am Beth Fitzmaurice, and my role is the Vice President of Public School Teacher and Leader in Teacher Development. My role is very similar to that of Kate's and Sandy's, and my focus is primarily on public school because my career was in public education prior to that. A lot of instructional coaching for educators, some leadership coaching around building an inclusive culture that supports classroom success, and then also working individually with leaders to build the all-important systems that are really necessary for teachers to be able to work within to do their best work.
Beautiful.
Thank you for having us today.
All right, so teaching and learning, fundraising, educator coaching, special education. For new timers, go to the ADAC.com, and it's providing K-12 schools, systems, and networks really the capacity they want and the need to confidentially grow into a fully realize, I should say, their educational missions. And there's so much that you all do to help education and students all over the country, right? It's throughout the country, not the world yet, is it?
Country.
Yep, as Kate would say, coast to coast right now.
Beautiful. All right. We'll get into more about ADAC as well in a little bit. But for today, we're going to navigate now the special education process. Beth, let me start with you. Which laws govern special education? And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about it, thank you.
Sure, Jill. Great question. There are both federal and state laws that govern special education. Nearly every state has its own laws that prescribe education for children with disabilities. These state laws often guide the implementation of the federal law, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which we affectionately term IDEA. States are permitted to pass laws that provide more services or supports than are required in the IDEA.
Okay.
And they may not pass laws that provide less. So some states will do more. Massachusetts is a little bit more robust than the federal law, and a couple of other states as well. On the federal level, there are the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is ESSA, which was in 2015, which is the newest version.
Okay.
of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which does speak to the education of students with disabilities. But we know special education is such an important component of education that there's also a standalone federal law governing the education of students with disabilities. And that, like I mentioned, is called the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today.
Beautiful. All right. In general, Kate, let me ask you, what is IDEA? Would you mind breaking that down for us a little bit?
Sure. So as Beth said, IDEA stands for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And it is a special education law, and it's a federal special education law that's designed to ensure that all students with disabilities in the United States are learning and progressing. Educators are trained in how to elevate the education of students with disabilities, and provides every family the opportunity to obtain a free and comprehensive evaluation for their child if they suspect that the child has a disability. And the process for obtaining a free evaluation is called child find.
Say that again. It's called what?
Child find, like as in
Nope, it
let's
just broke
find
up.
the
Yep.
yeah, let's find the child who has a disability and how can we help this child.
All right. In general, then, what is the child find process? If you don't mind also elaborating on that, or if Beth wants to take that too.
Sure, I can talk about that. No worries. Child find, I believe, is very aptly named. Every state must articulate and implement a process in which the educational agency, whether it be the parish schools or the county schools or the district, which would usually be the town, must do their due diligence to, in essence, find and serve any child that's suspected of having a disability. So this starts early on and often includes any permanent residents in the catchment area, any children in private schools, any migrant children, any wards of the state, and it includes service to homeless children as well. At the early stages, with very early childhood and primary education, a lot of districts or towns will reach out to pediatricians, daycare centers, and even the clergy in their district that maybe know of young children that might have some needs. And those things are sent through formal letters to pediatricians, sometimes postings, public notices in the newspaper, or I guess it's virtual now, and things like that. And then offering free screenings at any and all level to see if there are any needs that children may have. And then working with the schools to be diligent about investigating what they need and then providing the supports that they might need as well. And any sort of working with families, because any sort of screening or evaluation would require parent permission and parent involvement, and that family engagement is just so very important to the process as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And do you want to talk about some of the steps specifically as well?
Kate knows those by heart, so I'm going to let her do that.
Yeah, so there are about 10 steps, and there are timelines written into the federal law of when these steps need to happen. So the first thing that needs to happen is a request needs to be made to the local education agency to have a child evaluated due to the suspicion of a disability. And the local education agency, we all in the educational world refer to that as the LEA. And like Beth said, that can mean a bunch of different things, but for the most part, it means the local public school district in general, but there are nuances with each state. A request needs to be made to the local education agency to have the child evaluated.
Okay.
And then a team of professional educators
Okay.
and service providers will review the information that's sent to determine whether or not they're going to proceed with an evaluation. And then, and I think I cut you off. Did you want to ask
No,
something? I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So if the team of educators determine, yes, this child might have a disability, we suspect this child has a disability, then folks determine what domains that they're going to test the child in. Are they going to be testing speech, OT, academic, etc.? All the things that, for the most part, you can think of that may be interrupting a child's ability to access the academic day in the same way a non-disabled peer would be, or a neurotypical peer would be able to. And the team actually does include the parents and the child's teacher, which is an important component for folks to remember as they go through this process. Once the team decides, okay, these are the domains we're going to be testing, then the parents are provided a consent to evaluate form. Once the parents sign that consent, the team then has 60 days to complete the evaluation. Now, each state defines those 60 days differently. So some states define it as 60 actual days, Sunday through Saturday. Some define it as school days. And when it's defined as school days, it's typically when students are in school, not just teachers on a PDE day, when students are in school. And others count it as business days. But the most it should ever take is 60 school days. And that timeline is protected in IDEA. Once all those evaluations are done, the team comes together to review the results and determine whether or not the child has a disability. If they determine the child does have a disability and qualifies for special education and related services, then what happens is an IEP is written for a child who attends public school. And if a child attends private school, it's a little bit trickier, more nuanced than what I'm going to say here. But for the most part, if a child attends a private school and services are available, then a service plan is written. And that's how the child would get access to a private school child will get access to those.
Makes sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and then hopefully services begin, and then the final step is the continuous evaluating, progress monitoring, and then every 3 years there's an opportunity to reevaluate.
All right. Thank you so much. At this time, I just want to remind everyone how we can reach out to you all. Would you mind sharing?
Sure. So for the child find process, that navigation process, it's the ADACadvocacy.com, and then I'll pass it on to Sandy to tell the rest.
Yes, for ADAC private, there would be ADAC, just the ADAC.com. And then for ADAC public, it's the ADACpublic.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And let's move on over to talk about how ADAC helps public and private schools, K through 12, of course, to really effectively serve the students with special education needs. Sandy, do you want to comment on that?
Sure, Jill, I'll be happy to. So they're in two ways. First way is ADAC will come in and work closely with classroom teachers and the leadership of the school to, first of all, identify students that are struggling. And even though students may be struggling, doesn't necessarily mean they have a learning disability. So what we like to do is help the
Yep.
schools put in a process.
We've talked
where
about that before. Yeah.
Yes, we talked about, we helped them put in some interventions, monitor those interventions very closely over a period of time. And in some cases, we find that those interventions are very helpful and we were able to close those gaps. And what I say, the student can go on and fly in his or her own wings. But then if we go through all this process and as we're building up the data during this process and we find that the student is not making the effective progress, then we need to ask ourselves, is there a barrier in place that may be preventing this child to access the curriculum successfully and make the progress we like to see him? So then at that point, we have those critical conversations as to whether or not to send the child over for a special ed evaluation. I want to state that from the very beginning of our concern, the school's concern, we need to get the parents involved. And we talk very closely with the school representatives, how important it's important to have the child's parents involved in the process. So when we get to the point where we go to parents to say, we've collected all this data, we put in these interventions, we've done some progress monitoring, we feel there may be something else going on. Maybe we just want them to check in with a pediatrician, or maybe we should say, let's go for a special education evaluation. No surprise to parents at that point, right? Because we've been talking to them all along. They've been involved in the process.
Good. That's important, not to shock
Very
them, scare
important.
them. I've been in that position where I was shocked and scared. I
So
didn't
have
have
I.
yeah. So that is super
So
important.
So we work with them very closely, and then we will work with the school through the process and all those steps that Kate mentioned. We want to be a partner with the school to make sure that the law is complied with and the referral goes through successfully. Another piece that ADAC helps out with, and Kate really has been instrumental in this work, is the advocacy piece. Kate has worked as an advocate, working closely with families who are realizing that the process really hasn't been fair for them in one way or another. Kate has worked very closely with families, have been very successful in ensuring that these students get what they deserve at the end of the day, whether it be the services or the correct testing and assessments to produce the results we like to see. So we're very proud of Kate's work because it's very personal. And there are a lot of folks out there that will come to us and say, I just don't think we're being treated fairly under the law.
Got it. All right. Does anyone else want to piggyback on that and add something as well?
I would love to piggyback on that if I could. The process is very complicated, and oftentimes people have not even heard about this opportunity. And similar to Beth, I used to work in the public schools, and I was actually on those eligibility teams. And even though I worked in the public school and felt like I knew IDEA back and forth, it wasn't until I started working at my daughter's private school that I realized private school students could benefit from this as well. And so a lot of times it's just about, in addition to helping the families, but also helping everyone at the table understand this teeny tiny piece of the law that's just not very well known. And I think Beth and I agree, and I know Sandy does too, that most people get into education because they care about children. But sometimes we just all get caught up in process over purpose and checking our boxes. And sometimes having an advocate as you go through that process can be really helpful in slowing everyone down to make sure we keep in mind that at the center of all this is a child who needs support.
Beautiful. All right. What would you say? I'll ask Sandy. What does one do if you maybe suspect that your child or the child of a close family member or friend may have a learning difference? Let's talk about some of the things that we do and how we can handle that situation.
Our rule of thumb, as even as parents, is if you suspect something, say something. Don't. Research shows that it's critical that we identify these students early on, put in the correct supports so that they're successful later on. Going in to get a special ed eval for a student in 6th grade, it's a lot harder than in kindergarten or 1st grade. If a parent suspects, based on some evidence that they're seeing, whether the child is coming home with poor grades or the child is unhappy, doesn't want to go to school, there's some reasoning behind it, you're struggling, say something to the school officials immediately. And let's start doing some progress monitoring to see if we can help that kiddo be successful. Because like I said, once we can identify what the issues are and put those supports in place, the outcome for the student will be much brighter.
Got it. Could you share some examples, obviously without using families or children's names, of some of the people who that you've worked with in the special education sector, in a sense, where we've seen how the IDA has helped and how you, with ADAC, has helped guide that child and family? It's good to always hear those testimonials, as I call them, and success stories. Anyone want to take that, or all of you?
So I have a million, but I'll take one.
Okay,
I'll share
that's a
one.
good thing. Yes.
I'll share one story. I had a student who in the 1st grade was really misbehaving a lot. And there was talk about, is he the right fit for our school? And of course, Sandy, Beth, and I would be like, yes, of course he is. We have to figure out what's going on. That's what I did at the school. We finally got him evaluated, and it turned out he had a very severe learning disability in reading, but at the same time was quite exceptional. So that's a very unique type of situation where a child is gifted but has a learning disability, and it can be very frustrating for such a child because they know they should be able to do more. This child was looking at being exited from his private school, and I'm very happy to say that his mom called me at the beginning of this year. He earned a full scholarship to Tulane, and he went and spoke to all his professors about his reading disability and what he does to help himself out and what sometimes he'll need to do. And I just couldn't be prouder. And I think getting him those equitable services really changed the course for him.
Wow. I love hearing these stories. All right. Who wants to talk next?
So I can tell a little story about a family that I was fortunate enough to work with. And one of the misconceptions, I think, in non-public schools an awful lot of the time is that if your child needs specialized instruction, or if you want an evaluation or something like that, that then you have to withdraw from the private school and go to the public school. And it was frightening for this family because they really felt like their child was best suited where he was. And it took about a year and a half for us to encourage the family and help them to believe that this evaluation could happen and he could stay where he was. And so the evaluation occurred, and some services were indicated, and a service plan was written, and those services are being provided at his private school, and he is doing really well. And I saw him the other day, and he said, "I'm ready for 5th grade." And so I got the thumbs up, and I'm ready for 5th grade, and he's super proud of himself, and his family's just relieved because their child gets to stay with their siblings at the private school and go, and he's an active member of the parish next door, and serves mass at school masses and things like that. So it's just a really strong component of belonging and connecting that's so important for families and children, so that when you see one of these barriers in place, we really consider ourselves these little educational detectives. We like to figure out what these barriers are and find ways to navigate those to success, so that family unit can stay together in that school community, and so that child can be their best learner, and the teachers can build their toolbox in order to meet the needs of all the children that they have on their roster. So exciting.
Got it. Just a quick question. How do you find school? How many schools I don't know there are in the country, but how many of them help access people with the IDA, needs? Is it all public schools? Is it private schools only? Could you just share a little bit about that?
Sandy, you want to do that?
Yeah, it's both, actually.
Okay.
Even if you're in a private school, you get the same, under the law, you get the same requirements to go through a special education eval if it's your referred and the parents consent. So yeah, it's the same process, both in private, independent, and public. One
Beautiful.
thing I want to piggyback a little bit on what Kate and
Sure.
Beth said, and those excellent examples, because we have so many of them in our careers, but what I love about this process is actually twofold. Sometimes you have teachers who will come and they'll say, I don't know if we're going to be able to work with this student because the behaviors or the academics are so far behind. And it's just, we work so hard to help build support in for those teachers to say, we're going to do this. We're going to find out. Because sometimes you may go for an evaluation more than once to really find out what's going on with the child. Sometimes we may start at kindergarten and find out it may be reading, but in maybe 3rd grade, we find out there may be a little ADHD also. So we continue to work until we get to Beth's point, that child feeling, I can do this, and in the school feeling the same way. We can keep this child and work with him successfully. One point that I think we could all appreciate is, over the years, working with these children, we try to impose on them or encourage them to become advocates for themselves. To Kate's point, we want them to advocate. I need these accommodations to be successful in your class. I'm sorry, can you write the directions in addition to telling me them? Because if I see them, I can understand them better. So we teach the students how to advocate for themselves, and we ask parents to do the same for their children. It's so important as they get into high school and college to have that voice.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then if I could piggyback off of what Sandy's saying, yeah, that's the thing that I love about IDEA, and I can go on and on about it, but I like to call IDEA a purple law, because disabilities don't discriminate. Republicans have children with disabilities, Democrats have children with disabilities, and this law is designed to make sure children with disabilities are progressing. The intent to get children evaluated is to get them the support so that they can become independent, contributing members of society. It's not to over-identify children with disabilities or get them accommodations on entrance exams. It is to get them so that they are flying on their own. And then that's it. Looks like maybe you wanted to say something to that as well. So, oh no, okay. Sorry.
Nope. Nice job, Nice job, Kate.
Sorry, I took over as being host for a second.
That's
Sorry
no,
about
it's
that, Jill.
okay. It's okay, guys. We got 2 minutes left, so we do have to. So I'll let you finish, of course, and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you.
That's all I was going to say
Oh,
about
okay.
that. Yeah. So,
All right. Well, at this time, we have to remind everyone how we can contact you. And again, thank you for helping us navigate through the special education process and for doing what you do. Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you all, would you mind sharing all the contact information?
It's theadac.com.
Okay.
For public division, you would want theadacpublic.com. And for our advocacy foundation, it's adacadvocacy.com.
Perfect. And also, let's see, next week, I forget, my computer's not working, but I wanted to preview what's happening. It's stuck for next week. I'm not sure. Do you guys know what the topic is for next week? I usually have it up, but it's
Yes,
not
for
here.
next week, you are going to be doing math challenges and solutions with Tom Oates.
There it is. I got it. Yes, yes. So Tom's back, Matthew and Michael. Okay,
That's
good.
correct. Yes, you're going to love them. They're dynamic.
All right, Sandra Drummy, Kate McConnell, Elizabeth Fitzmaurice, thank you so much for being here and for explaining this and breaking it down for us. And I hope people are listening and there's more schools that want to get involved and help. And I know ADAC offers, of course, not only what we've talked about today, but also the foundation. So there's a lot that they can provide. Reach out. And again, thank you guys so much for today. I hope you have a fantastic one and a good week. It's a happy Monday here.
Good job.
1 in 5 children in the United States have learning differences, making it more challenging than ever to be a teacher or school leader. At ADAC, we empower K-12 educators to meet the learning needs of all students through customized professional development and coaching services. Learn more at www.theadac.com. That's THEADAC.
Thank you for listening to this episode of ADAC Answers. If you enjoyed this podcast and would like to hear more, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about ADAC, please visit our website, www.theadac.com. That's theadac.com. You can also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn.